President John Dramani Mahama has, in consultation with the Council of State, granted amnesty to 998 prisoners across Ghana out of a total of 1,014 prisoners recommended by the Prison Service Council. Now, the decision is in accordance with Article 72(1) of the 1992 Constitution, which empowers the President to grant pardons, reprieves, or commute sentences in persons who are going to be beneficiaries of the said Amnesty Act. This decision the President took in consultation with the Council of State. And let's take a look at the details of Article 72(1), that specific provision in our Constitution that empowers the President to do what he has done as of earlier this evening when we received the statement. The 72(1), prerogative of mercy. The President may, and it's instructive that you pay attention to the wording of this particular constitutional provision. And as Dennis Paberi-Wadam Esquire will say, the may and shall defines how the provision of that particular act is executed. The President may, acting in consultation with the Council of State, grant to a person convicted of an offense a pardon, either free or subject to lawful conditions, or grant to a person a respite, either indefinite or for a specified period, from the execution of punishment imposed on him for an offense. So you look at the details of 72(1)(a, the President acting in consultation with the Council of State, the President is not really bound to do so, then he can take that decision, grant to a person convicted of an offense a pardon, either free or subject to lawful conditions. So that's what we're going to see, the details of the various categories of inmates who have enjoyed or who are going to enjoy this pardon or amnesty granted by the President today. He has the power to also grant to a person a respite, either indefinite or for a specified period, from the execution of punishment imposed on him for an offense. Also, the President may, in consultation with the Council of State, substitute a less severe form of punishment for a punishment imposed on a person for an offense. So we're going to see in instances where the President is going to be making substitution for a more severe punishment with a lesser or less severe form of punishment, or remit the whole or part of a punishment imposed on a person, or of a penalty or forfeiture otherwise due to government on account of any offense. So this is the detail of Article 72(1) of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, that the President has exercised this particular authority or the power in this Article 72(1), and this is what the President has done today, based on what we do know. These are the numbers, and we're going to start from the top. Out of the 998, out of the 1,014 who were initially recommended for amnesty by the Prison Service Council, 998, just two of them shy of 1,000, were granted this amnesty. Out of the 998, 787 of them are first-time offenders. And bear in mind, the statement that we got did not come with the names or identities of these beneficiaries of the amnesty by the President. 787 of them are first-time offenders, and then also 87 of them are persons who were sentenced to death, but their sentences have been commuted now to life imprisonment. And this is instructive because, if you recall, on July 25, 2023, Parliament passed bills to amend the Criminal Offences Act and the Armed Forces Act, which in turn replaced the death penalty with life imprisonment for most offenses. But because that particular amendment did not take retrospective effect, this decision by the president is instructive and is beneficial, especially to those who have been serving the death sentences, but as a result of that amendment and not taking retrospective effect, they would now have to still be on death row, waiting the president's intervention. So as far as we do know, 87 of inmates who are serving death sentences, albeit has been repealed or reviewed, we have them now enjoying the presidential amnesty or pardon. Now, 51 of the inmates have also had their life sentences now commuted to 20 years definite term. So take a look at this. Those who were sentenced to death have now had their death sentences now reduced, essentially, to life imprisonment. 51 who were sentenced to life imprisonment have now had their sentences reduced to 20 years definite term. And 33 of inmates who were categorized as seriously ill have also been granted amnesty. Now, when this statement came out, a number of you started sending messages and asking questions on social media whether William Atuesian, the CEO of defunct Capital Bank, whom we saw a swell of campaign and advocacy for him to be granted amnesty because of his ill health. In fact, there were pictures and videos of him not looking too well. Some of you were asking whether he was part of the 33 who, based on their description of seriously ill, have been given pardon. We do not know that. Graphic Online is already quoting a source that they have at the presidency who has indicated that William Atuesian and Agrada are not part of this, but Agrada is been behind bars for less than 3 months. So she's out of the equation on this matter. But William Atuesian, according to Graphic Online, they are quoting their source that he is not part of the 33 seriously ill persons who have been granted amnesty today by the president. We cannot independently, corroborate that particular report. We'll see how the coming days will look like. But the identities of these persons were not also put out. 36 of the inmates who are over 70 years, irrespective of their offense, they've been forgiven. The president says, you know what, you're over 70 years, irrespective of your offense, 36 of them, just go home. And there are 2 nursing mothers as well who have been giving some amnesty. Plus, there were petitions about some inmates that the president, in consultation with the Council of State, has also taken a decision to now grant them amnesty. 2 petitions specific about some 2 unnamed or unidentified inmates in there. That makes up the 998 of the inmates who have received amnesty in different categories from the president earlier today. And that is also in conformity with the details of Article 72(1) of the 1992 Constitution, as we did indicate. Martin Kpebu is a private legal practitioner. He's joining us on Zoom right now for a conversation on this council. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. First of all, start off with the exercise of this authority by the president, giving this number of inmates amnesty, 998 of them in different categories, enjoying different forms of mercy by the president. How did this strike you?
Yeah, it's refreshing, Mr. Okansi. It's a good move by the president. He's done it in good time. Earlier on, I stated that over a period, usually in times past, the presidents did it just prior to Republic Day. So sometimes those years you hear that as part of the celebration of Republic Day, 1st July, blah, 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 the president has exercised his prerogative of mercy under Article 72 and blah, blah, right? So around that time, yes, or sometimes a few days before Republic Day, etc., right? But, it's not written in law that it must always be around Republic Day. And also, I'm saying, so August is not too far from the Republic Day that now, I mean, we've turned into National Day of Thanksgiving and Prayer, okay? But I was making a point earlier on in another platform, earlier on with you on 3FM, that when President Akufo-Addo was in office, there was this time that he didn't exercise it for the longest time, and it caused a lot of unrest. I remember it clearly because at that time, I had petitioned for a client, and it had taken so long, especially as the reason we were very disappointed was that there was one of the Akufo-Addo appointees who was previous lawyer for this my client. So he was actually holding that brief, and then they won elections, and now he was sitting very close to the president. But I can tell you, for almost 2 years, it wasn't going through. So when you hear pardon, etc., it can be very complex, especially in the time of Akufo-Addo. Looking at who that lawyer was, I don't want to mention names. We are discussing the principle. I want to show that sometimes it can be very complex because this lawyer was almost always sitting near the president, yet the young man didn't get a pardon easy. We just thought that, oh, if your former lawyer is almost in the Akufo-Addo circles, your pardon there, it will come in 2 weeks. But I never did for a long time. And you know what actually helped the pardon at that time was the COVID. So when COVID hit and there were problems in the prisons, COVID over there, etc., then the prison service was able to push, and then finally Akufo-Addo gave in. Yeah.
I see. It's that leads me to the details of what we read, because if you look at the death sentence that has been varied now to life imprisonment, and if you the details of 72(1) empowers the president to do so. We abolished the death penalty in 2023. The president, I mean the former president Akufo-Addo, accented to it before leaving office. But we've seen it being actualized now with these persons who are serving their death sentences, their sentences now being varied to life imprisonment. Counsel.
Yes, absolutely. The president has done a yeoman's job on the in this area. He's done a yeoman's job because, like we said, at the time Francis Xavier Susu pushed for the passage or enactment of the abolition of the death penalty, I remember at that time there were over 150. And even sometime last year when this matter came up again, the numbers have always been over 150 on death row. When we say death row, that's those who have been convicted to suffer death because they had also murdered or were involved in mutiny in the armed forces or high treason, right? And that was a huge number. So when Xavier Susu did that yeoman's job and we got the law passed, we beseech Akufo-Addo once again to commute the sentences of those who are already on death row to life imprisonment, simply because, well, maybe I shouldn't say simply, because of the problem of solitary confinement on death row. When somebody is on death row, in Sawam, they call it condemned cells, right? Condemned cells, yes, and also outside Ghana, you hear in the UK. So that word, condemned cells, there was a lot of solitary confinement. The conditions are horrific. So we kept begging President Akufo-Addo that, oh, if we've abolished the death penalty, then those who are already on it, we didn't say free them to come outside, but commute all of them on block to life imprisonment so that their socialization can be substantially increased. You see, because human beings, you know, socialization is very important. You get to talk to the next human being. It helps to keep your spirits up, etc. Because the condemned cells, they will tell you that they always live in fear, even though we all know that since 1993, nobody's been executed. But once you're in the condemned cells, technically it means that at any moment, they can come for you and go and carry it out. So the fact that we haven't executed anybody since 1993 is no answer. Actually, to tell you the truth, when Amnesty International was leading charges for us to abolish the death penalty and they came to me, I said, we don't execute people. We have bigger problems in the criminal justice system. What is this? Then they reminded me about solitary confinement. And so I did the research that led to eventually Susu using that to getting the law passed. Yeah, prior to that, we had gone to Akufo-Addo to tell him the new research that, let's remove the death penalty from Act 29. And so you would have solved the problem by about 95%. Then you leave the death penalty that is in the Constitution. That's high treason. Okay? Akufo-Addo said, yes. Oh, his Attorney General was there. Oh, I've told the Attorney General to work on it. Afterwards, it was difficult. Long story short, eventually Sosu became MP, and then Sosu took it on, did a private member's bill, and then, so eventually we have this. But there's still death penalty in the armed forces, right? That's something that we should deal with. So the point we're making is that, look, President Mahama has done well by commuting 87. 87 is huge. So we'll beg him that those still on the death row, he should just finish them up by bringing all to life imprisonment so that they can, enjoy a bit of life.
I see. And that's instructive because the law does not take retrospective effect. So essentially it would mean that it is only a presidential intervention or amnesty that would come in as a lifeline to these persons who are on death row.
Yes, absolutely. You make a good lawyer. Yes, you make a good lawyer. So it doesn't take retrospective effect. So those who are already suffering the death sentence, it means, yes, they are to suffer it. But like we said, we haven't executed anybody since 1993. And also, let's give this further education. So the practice is that when a person is sentenced to death, when he's on death row, usually the prison service, there's this policy they use. Of course, it's the president who agrees to do it. He serves 20 years in solitary confinement before the sentence is commuted to life imprisonment. So there was that process that we're using. But you have to go through the torture for 20 years. Then after 20 years, the president will commute to life. So you see, when we get further details, then we even understand that, hey, this 87, how many of them did the 20 years? But whatever it is, from experience, 87 out of the 150 something, it looks like the president has done something good. But maybe the Attorney General and those from the presidency will do us some good if they will tell us, out of the 87, how many met the old policy where somebody on death row will serve 20 years before qualifying for this rate to be commuted to life imprisonment.
I see.
Okay.
But if you look at the category, and this is going to be my final one, the categories of the persons who have enjoyed this amnesty, some of them, it goes without saying. So if someone is seriously ill, 33 of them have been given this amnesty. Of the people who have been sentenced to death and now life imprisonment, those life imprisonment now having their sentences commuted to 20 years straight term. But how about the petitions as well? We understand some 2 petitions for the release of some 2 inmates has also been considered by the president. What guides that kind of consideration? Because that's not explicitly stated in Article 72(1), is it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but, because we don't have much time, I'll just give a few based on what I've seen in practice. So, I mentioned that number 1, if somebody writes a petition and he has strong backers, okay, people with deep political, a person with a deep political voice, or people with deep political voices back the person, generally it works well. I said generally because remember I just gave you the example that under President Akufo-Addo, when there was a big lawyer very close to him who was lawyer for this young man. He was, like I told you, I thought, when they brought me the brief and they said, this man sitting near Akufo-Addo is the previous lawyer. Then I said, then this work will be very easy. So quickly we put the letter together, and like I told you, about 2 years before it worked. But generally, when there is strong political force, it helps. That's one. Then number 2, you also look at the merits of the case. If it's very clear that the person didn't get justice in a court of law, and once in a while it happens, judges are human beings, mistakes happen, okay? It's not only in Ghana. I'm not saying so it should continue happening, but because we don't have much, I have to talk quickly. So I'm not belittling people's liberties, but I'm just recognizing that in life, mistakes happen. So if you put together a strong petition and it shows clearly that something went wrong in the court of law, yes, the president will grant it. And I'm saying that even in the UK, there's what they have criminal commission, okay? So the criminal review commission, where mistakes happen in the courts, and you send your case to that place, they will look at it, there are judges involved. Once they think, no, the Court of Appeal, criminal division made a mistake, then they recommend back to the court that no, this case, based on X, Y, Z, we think you shouldn't have convicted. And then it's quashed. Okay, so elsewhere, they have that system. But Ghana, no. If you do up to Supreme Court and you lose, then it means that it's only the president who can save you, right? So if you build a docket and the president gets his lawyers to look at it and they say, yes, this one, something bad happened in the court, you get it, all right? So that's another reason why you get it. And then you mentioned the ill health, people who are not well. I'll give you a famous example. Remember the former Deputy National Security Coordinator when JM was president, Alhaji Osman Mimina, right? He was Deputy National Security Coordinator. He was convicted in the Bakuboni case. That's the NCA trial, Tetevi, Bakuboni, etc. Eventually, when Akufo-Addo granted him pardon, he said Alhaji Osman wasn't well. He's a chief as well, so he was granting him pardon. At least a public statement. If you Google, you see.
Yeah, I mean the likes of Abu Gapele and all. I mean they enjoyed that pardon on that basis of ill health, isn't it?
Good. Then also, when the person has an exceptional talent, right? Exceptional talent. I mean, that's everybody agrees that this person is exceptionally talented, is useful to society. The president grants pardon. Our famous example is G-Man. G-Man was convicted in the 90s. G-Man and a Jagapi, right? And G-Man, when Kufuor was president, G-Man had, repented, and he had become, he was teaching the inmates music, he became a pastor, etc. And Kufuor granted him pardon. G-Man came out. G-Man is in America. The last time I knew, he's a pastor in America. So you see, G-Man went in. But because of his exceptional talent, relatively in no time, he was out. But I'm sure G-Man went and met some people who are still there, right? So you see, exceptional talent can also... So there are a whole number of them. Let's also mention that, apart from the pardons, also in the Prison Service Act, right?
Right.
Yes. The law says that, let's say, if a person is sentenced to, let's say, 30 years for, let's say, armed robbery, robbery. Under the law, you don't serve all the 30 years. You are to serve 2/3.
Okay.
So if you see 30 years, the person doesn't spend 30 years. He will spend 20. So if it's 3 years, you spend 2. So you divide it by 3 and throw away 1. Then you will serve, listen, in other countries, it's half. In the UK, for instance, it's half, 50%. You don't serve 2/3.
I see.
It's Ghana there, we are harder, right? Yeah. Generally, our manners are harder. As we develop, we may become softer.
It's gonna get
so
better.
That's another thing we should be looking at, that in this sense. So when they do this prerogative of mercy, etc., maybe we should be distinguishing from the law which says that when a person is sentenced, they serve 2/3. They don't serve all the 4. Because sometimes you're like, hey, are they also included, or what's the criteria? Okay.
And I do appreciate you. This is a whole legal law lecture for tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know we'll have another platform and discuss this a bit more detail. Martin Kpebu, appreciate you. He's a celebrated human rights lawyer joining us on Zoom right now. Thank you so much for joining us.